Smooth. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm Tara. We can do that again.
Okay.
That's Ryan. I'm the founder and editor of Search Party.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm creative director, and also I wrote and did some photos and stuff too. So we've done a little bit of everything in terms of Search Party so far.
Absolutely. And like, what would you say was like the inception for a Search Party to pop up in your mind one day randomly? Like, what was that?
I have written for a lot of St. Louis publications. We're Fun Times, 11 Music Magazine,
11.
Stereo Salt, Made Monarchs.
Nice.
I don't know, there's probably more. And a lot of those are no more. You know, I mean, RFT is no more, right?
Yeah. Rest in peace. Legit.
Yeah. And so I really cut my teeth here as a music journalist. And during the pandemic, I just had like this feeling I wanted to make something. And I tweeted about it, you know. And then I applied for a grant. I applied for the grant, the Futures Fund at the Luminary,
Nice.
and got it. I didn't tell Ryan. I didn't know Fonz at the time, actually, but I didn't tell Ryan. But I pitched him in the grant without his knowledge. And I was like, if I don't get it, he won't know. Like, nobody will be the wiser. I'll just do this thing.
Yeah.
And then they gave it to me, and I was like, that's cool.
You got to shoot the shots like that.
Yeah,
sometime.
you know. I don't know. I mean, it was like February 2021.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 0 degrees outside or negative. I was probably in St. Louis and I wasn't doing shit. So I was like, I might as well just dream big, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, the pandemic, that was a time where I feel like it placed a lot of us in those spaces of just contemplating so much inside of life and really contemplating like the impact that you want to leave, you know what I mean? So to watch for that to kind of be a bit of that conduit and that shot being shot out of there is like some of the cool things that actually came from COVID.
Yeah, and I think that obviously everything was super digital, or like we were forced to be at home, and I was really thinking about ways that we can bring community together, like and you know, once we're back outside and we can be together, like, can we kind of gather around this magazine, and can we, I mean, I've spent my life like making zines, taking book classes in school, so I love, you know, physical print editions of things.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I mean, I know people love to say print's dead, but I don't agree.
What's the question?
Well, so
I guess kind of going back to what you talked about being an archivist.
mm-hmm.
Naturally, my mom could tell you, I try not to throw stuff away that I think is cool. I don't know if everybody else thinks it's cool, but I would like to keep LeBron James's third year magazine because I think it's cool, or the first magazine somebody ever covered. So like with the opportunity to kind of just replicate that here in St. Louis, it just kind of felt like a no-brainer. And then like to your point, it felt like during the pandemic, nobody knew what was going to come next, or like what we were going to do next kind of as a group, just like as the art scene here. And so it just kind of felt like the obvious thing to kind of do. It's just like start the new thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's, for me, witnessing Search Party, especially during that midst of COVID, hearing you say, like, we didn't know what was about to happen after COVID. Like, venues shut down, everywhere shut down. If you're a musician, you make your money off of performing in front of people. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know what was really going on. And I think what was really cool was, like, something called even Search Party. It felt like this group collaborative effort to either, like, go find it, but also, like, stamp that, like, yeah, that's on Grand. This is happening here, happening there. In the names of Search Party, what was the inspiration behind the name Search Party? And, like, yeah.
I wanted something that kind of meant nothing, but you could kind of like have your own meaning, postmodernism, whatever. But I don't know. I also was thinking of like the NERD album. Isn't it called like In Search of? But I don't know. I think I pitched it with the grant because I was like, this has to have a name, right? So I was just like writing names, and I was just like, this one seems good enough. I don't know. It worked.
And I think in general, that's the power of names in general. But let's just say like art, right? In which y'all curating the art as attentive as y'all do, the viewers and the listeners, they're gonna add the or story to why they think this is this way or X, Y, and Z. It kind of grows its own narrative almost.
Yeah, and our icon's a helicopter, so looking for talent.
And speaking of that helicopter that is designed really dopely, that was designed by Fonz, correct?
Yeah. Designer and art director. He couldn't be here tonight, but shout out Fonz.
Big old shout out to Fonz. Fonz is one of my favorite human beings. I first got hip to Fonz as Fonz the rapper.
He wears many hats too. Yeah. So podcaster, rapper, designer, I'm sure it's more.
So look, in that same area of like creatives who wear many hats, right? Inside of the magazine, you guys feature musicians. You guys feature the artworks of other different creatives inside of St. Louis. How important do y'all feel like this magazine is to creatives to be able to have a platform to share our work?
I kind of look at it more so like people need benchmarks. And like, I know sometimes people feel like there can't be a number one person, but if you don't have a person who's out in front as number one, how do you know who's number 10? How do you know if you're number 1,000? Yeah. And so it's like, I feel like all artists everywhere sometimes get online and they share their most inner deep thoughts. Yeah. Why don't somebody cover me? How come nobody listens to my music? How come XYZ? So I wanted to help create something to where people didn't have to do that. If you put it out and it's good and people sharing it and you're actively doing it, somebody's going to take notice to you. So for me, it was kind of just a nod to those people that I felt like just been doing it. Like, oh, people do notice what you're doing and we want to make it live forever. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Put it in these pages so that people can just kind of keep consuming it in a different way, and also give artists like another more life to their art. I feel like sometimes stuff is getting lost just on Instagram. It's just a post. If you don't reshare it, sometimes as an artist, you could feel like, oh, I'm getting on people's nerves. I don't want to keep sharing the same picture. But now as an artist, you need to be a content creator. So you got to create like 30 pieces of content for each song, just so you feel like you're actually doing something. And it's like, maybe this is old school to me, but I'm like, is your shit hot or not? You know what I'm saying? Like, either the shit is hot or it's not hot. And if people don't like it, it might not be that hot, which is okay. You need to know your shit is not hot so that you can make it hot. 100%. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like people wondering what's hot in St. Louis. Boom, search party. Here you go. You only gotta, this is hot.
Yeah.
Sorry, you said, yeah. Okay. So as a journalist, I've been working as a journalist for like 15 years, and a lot of the gatekeepers aren't Black and brown people, and because of that, there's not a lot of visibility to what's happening. And I think also since it's been interesting because since the first and second issue, where there's like a 3-year gap, so much has changed in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. New venues, new artists, like, I'm Indian and I see other people who are South Asian, or I see like Miley, or I see, other people making music, being in these creative spaces, and it's really inspiring and cool, especially as like when I grew up, you didn't see anybody. I didn't see anybody who looked like me represented in media. And it's like a very visual thing, right? To see people who look like you doing things that you're doing, and you're like, oh, I'm not alone, or I'm not othered, Yeah. I think the other answer is that, the first issue was a culture issue, and I was thinking a lot about like highbrow and lowbrow, like what people think or consider highbrow and lowbrow art. Highbrow art, fine art, lowbrow art, rap, graffiti, whatever. And I really wanted all of that to be in conversation with one another in the same magazine, because I just never really see it like that. Like, you look at a complex, you don't see fine art, So I think that was just very interesting to me, to just have everything in conversation with each other.
It only makes its absolute sense. And it really brings you back to like the art of storytelling, right? And of course, for me, when I think of the art of storytelling, I think of hip hop, I think of rap, I think of Outkast, etc. You know what I mean? But like when it comes to you being a writer, you know, it's not like this magazine just got some of the dopest photo shoots or like designs from these different creatives. There are like really intricate stories that are being told in different ways, you know, and just with you being a writer, how is that process with thinking about how you want the storytelling to be told, but then some people might not be aware. It wasn't like Tara wrote every single article.
I don't think I wrote anything for the first issue.
Yeah.
For the second issue, I did. I don't know. It's also like cultivation. So I feel like we're cultivating writers, or like me and Ryan had this conversation recently about how we're not really traditional. Like we ask people to write notes. Like we had you write an essay, you know, or like in the first issue. In the second issue at Umami, write a personal note with a DJ mix. So I think like firsthand accounts of from people who are existing in the scene, and you know, I think Black Spade said something really interesting in the last issue about just again gatekeeping, but in terms of venues, and like all these white venues aren't as interested in having like Black and brown people have events in their spaces, you know. So I think we take like a non-traditional approach, but also very traditional. Like there's the Black Spade one was probably how I typically write a profile, and I really got Denise to, you know, like the edits were heavy because I feel like we're also teaching people to be writers. Even Benny from the first issue, he's not a journalist, but you know, I provide edits, I guide them, you know, and I think the hardest thing has been finding writers to write, but we're also just kind of cultivating and growing that too. So we have like a roster of writers.
That cultivation is it's just a reminder of how important that is, because it feels like you guys were able to empower the natural storytellers with a platform to tell their story, but then also with like strategic guidance to ensure that it fits into the magazine. It's just, I'm not even necessarily asking a question, I'm just stating of like big old kudos to y'all for like really extending a hand into St. Louis. And matter of fact, let's go ahead and get that clap. Because crazy enough, like the old St. Louis narrative that we hear sometimes, we hear people be like, man, St. Louis is crabs in the barrels, man. Don't nobody support nobody, man. Everybody got beef with everybody. And I'm like, I guess. But like for me, man, dog, like from how I've seen it, the natural St. Louis way is exactly what Search Party is doing. It's exactly people who have navigated and lived life inside of St. Louis, moved out to Chicago, and was like, dang, I still care about this place called St. Louis, and I want to find a way to document it. Like with y'all being creatives who have moved and left out of this city, why are you here? What's been bringing you back? What has been making you be like, dang, I want to really give back to my city in the ways that I know how?
What's up, Knox? How you doing, brother? I think for me, the biggest thing was when you go somewhere else, I just felt like I was contributing to their scene. And in the bottom of my heart, I don't really care what those people think. Like, not like that, but it's just like, if Chicago people felt this way, if people in New York changed this way, I'm from St. Louis. That's what I still cared about the most. And I kept finding myself feeling that way. And so I kind of was like, well, like I said, am I hot or not? If I can't make it out of St. Louis, and I'm not that hot. So I don't even really have to think about it. I know that I could go somewhere else and contribute and do something and make some noise and do some stuff. I did it. And so once I did it, I was like, okay, I guess I could keep doing this. And then people from where I'm from and other people be like, oh, man, you're so cool. You're doing X, Y, Z. But that wasn't the coolest thing that I felt like I could do. And so it was like, that was kind of more so my challenge, to kind of just challenge myself to elevate the things that I care about the most.
Mm-hmm. And before we switch over to you, for any other creative who is in this audience, like when did you leave St. Louis and what brought you to Chicago during that time?
So I guess I don't really talk about it as much, but I'm a writer too. I'm just in advertising, so I'm a senior copywriter. So I'm a reluctant journalist. I would say, no, I can write, but I just don't want to write articles. Really, like I'm reluctantly. Yeah. I was writing when you asked me. That's why you asked me, because I was writing articles. But so I'm reluctant, like a writer in that way. But I left St. Louis 2014 and came back 2020. And it was more so kind of like you said, my creativity had first started, I guess, kind of behind the camera, uploading stuff to YouTube, then doing Souls of Liberty. And it was like, okay, well, I need a bigger market to try to continue to test out the things that I'm really trying to find and learn about myself and like the product that I'm creating. Like I said, got to some rooms, did some stuff where I was like, oh, okay, now I know how it works now. But then I was like, oh, but what's going to be my story?
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I was writing other people's story. I was helping other people do their thing. And I was like, well, what's kind of going to be my story? So initially I would say advertising and just looking for a bigger hip hop market at that time is what drove me out of St. Louis. But what brought me back was not only just the pandemic, but just trying to see if I could like prove something to myself.
That's what's up. I mean, you absolutely and obviously doing that, bro, is the presence that you have in this city. If we have not given you enough flowers, that is something that we need to do on every aspect. Your execution is at a different level, and it make everybody salute and then raise themselves up. Yeah. So just big flowers, dog.
I appreciate
big flowers at Big Esco.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't live here. I feel like I follow the story. So I left St. Louis in 2014. I moved to New York, and I was already writing here. And when I moved there, I was freelancing and working at Complex. And then I moved to Chicago because I got bored, and I moved to Chicago. But I've been to Chicago for almost 10 years. But I think something that Black Spade said in his story again was like bringing trinkets back, right? Like for him, obviously it was like music, but for me, it's like the knowledge that I gained elsewhere, bringing it back and seeing what I could do with it here and how I could have an impact on this place.
Yeah. It reminds me of just in general of like every person, like the people up here, they St. Louis proud than a mug, you know what I'm saying? But they obviously not too St. Louis proud to step out of this city in the world and go like receive everything that is out there for you. You know what I'm saying? And you know, when you put yourself in places and spaces like that, again, you have a stronger ability to be able to tell your story, tell St. Louis's story, because you're just more versatile of who you are.
Something else you just made me think about was that, like, I also had this thought of when I was out of town and I would go hang out with my other St. Louis friends who were living out of town. I was like, damn, if everybody I knew from St. Louis lived in St. Louis, it would be a better city. You know what I'm saying? Like, if everybody you know from St. Louis just moved back tomorrow, you'd be like, damn, I'm excited. Like, so-and-so back, they here. But depending on your profession, depending on what you're doing, it's not feasible for you to be here. And that, to me, I was like, damn, I have to figure out a way to make it feel like you could move back home. Because I know why they're not moving back home. I felt that same way. Yeah. But I was like, but if you see what's actually going on here, and I feel like I've felt that since we kind of Search Party is part of that, other stuff we just doing that, like, oh, people are like, damn, like, I see what's going on at home. So I'm just kind of like, how much longer you going to stay away? You want to be inspired. Like, people move to New York because it's inspiring. People move to Chicago because it's inspiring. Even outside of having a job opportunity, it's just like, I'm inspired enough to think that my dreams are possible. And for y'all in St. Louis to be able to cultivate Search Party in general, it reminds me of like, y'all obviously are tapped into the scene. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm curious on is like, with all of these artists, with all these musicians, like, what has been the glue to like have y'all to understand the scene? And then has there been other moments where you just got hit with brand new discoveries of like people who you didn't know exist as y'all was sharing artists back and forth? Like, how was that process with like discovering St. Louis's scene, but then also like sharing the gems that you already know?
I mean, Ryan was the glue initially. you know, but also curiosity. I mean, I'm always interested in what's happening and like finding new music, finding new artists, finding, you know, I mean, once the curiosity is no more, then I think you're in trouble, but I always remain curious.
Yeah.
I'm nosy. I'm not curious. So like watching Kenny, he used to have his USBs. And I didn't even talk to Kenny then. He didn't even know I was watching him do that. But I'm like, damn, how are people getting music around? How they doing this and that? I met somebody younger, Ray AR, shout out to them. They on the cover of the magazine.
Yeah.
It's like, my mom introduced me to Ray AR when they was in high school. She was doing a mentorship program. And so it's just like, but I was living in Chicago then. So then I moved back a couple years later and I'm like, oh, that's the dude she introduced me to. William H was rapping down the street, like you said, in those years. Black Spade was always around. I seen Jada post pictures, you know what I'm saying? So it would just be like a thing. I'm just nosy. I'm just trying to see. Because everybody said they hot. So I'm like, let me see what's going on. And so when it was time to kind of curate, to me, that was the easiest part. I don't think that we have a hard task of trying to put the people together. I think it's organizing it. And then, like you said, everybody feels like, well, you gave me $1 million, I'll become a superstar. But then what happens after you have the product? What happens when you have to do this? Like those other questions, I feel like it's something else that like, I feel like it's kind of like our responsibility, having worked or been a part of bigger organizations. How can we continue to organize what we got here?
Yeah, the organization as such, that's like creating a destination is super key. And again, I'm gonna keep on going back to the whole search party theme and like that pin drop on a map / creating a map and a legend for St. Louis. For me, that's what I feel like I get when I see search party. In that whole type of spiel, we got folks in St. Louis to where like it's so many different type of communities. Some people may have came here and had no idea what search party was. Some people came here and is in search party. Some people came here, you know, it's a wide various of different pools. But for someone who were to leave out of here, you know what I'm saying, and go step into St. Louis and they're like, man, I want to go experience St. Louis. Could you give them a piece of advice on how should they actually experience St. Louis?
You should experience St. Louis with an open mind. St. Louis is not Texas, it's not California, it's not New York. You know what I'm saying? So if you come to St. Louis and you're like, it's not like New Orleans, well, duh, because it's St. Louis. You know what I mean? And it's kind of one of those places. Like you hear people say, oh, I came to St. Louis. I was trying to hang out downtown. Well, downtown not the place to hang out in St. Louis. Did you go to the Loop? Did you go to the Grove? Oh, you ain't even know that. So you're just talking shit. You don't even know. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that would be my way. Like you have to experience with the St. Louis with the open mind, because not even, you know, we get a little deeper here. You think about St. Louis City, you think about St. Louis County. It's gyms in Maplewood, it's gyms in Kirkwood, it's gyms in Webster Groves, it's gyms U City that people don't know about. You know what I mean? So I think you just have to experience St. Louis with that open mind and kind of just dive into it and find out what you like about St. Louis. Not what other people say you're supposed to like or what's supposed to be hot. Like, you got to find out for yourself. Right, yeah.
I mean, I just always feel like St. Louis is better when you ask like a local's perspective. You know, again, like you said, it's like not New Orleans, it's not New York, it's not Chicago. Like you have to go. Like I feel like the cool little pockets are like kind of spread out and you have to drive. So it's like you probably wouldn't know unless you ask somebody who's from here, you know. And all that stuff changes. Like how much has St. Louis changed the last 5 years?
Tremendously.
Like the Loop is different completely, you know. The Grove is different, you know. So
Yeah. No. Man, this is really exciting just in general, y'all. Like, I have to say, I'm a big fan of Search Party. And y'all know how we've been talking. I'm like, let's find ways to continue to merge and do things with one another as earthly possible. So thank y'all for being like, hey, yo, let's get Mvstermind to host it. You know,
thank you for doing
moderate.
this.
For sure. So, yeah, we definitely can hop into questions right now. Yeah, I think that actually makes the most sense. We are going to take some questions, y'all. Definitely excited to hear from folks. Does anybody got any particular question they want to holler at Search Party about? Get some insight from these writers and creatives. What's going on, Will? Oh yeah. For those who didn't hear, William H., the legend, has said, "What is the ultimate goal for a search party?" Ryan and Tara.
I think I also named it a search party so that it could be marketable in many places and not just St. Louis. And
Nice.
I think that's the goal, is to enter other markets, but obviously keep it to its core of being only St. Louis folks. But like when you look at it, you don't know. You know, it's not overt. But then you realize and you're like, damn, they got all this going on, you know?
Nice.
I would probably say try to get to like a 5 or 10 year mark. I feel like it's been a lot of things that have started here and had a lot of good intention, but life be life, and it's hard to kind of keep stuff going as a creative. Like that's the number one thing I feel like I've recognized about like, why is Jay-Z such a good creative? Why is Lil Wayne such a good creative? It's because it's like through their entire life, they just kept dropping songs. And like the older I get, the more I feel like how hard that is to just keep dropping songs. You had a baby, you had this, you had that, you broke your foot, you did, whatever it is, you just keep going to the studio, you keep dropping songs, you keep dropping songs. So I just kind of want to keep dropping issues, like longevity.
That's important. It's definitely important. We got another question in the back.
Cool. In the digital era, how important was it to make physical copies? That dude, Bino, he shot the cover of issue 2. Make some noise for Bino. Yeah. Shout
out to Bino.
I think it's super important because like, you know, shit, on HBO Max, they took away some of my favorite shows. I can't even watch them joints no more. You know what I'm saying? So even being in a physical space like vintage vinyl, it's like recently I've been like buying old CDs, like DJ Clue mixtapes and stuff like that. And they used, you know what I mean? But they new to me. So I kind of feel like maybe we have that advantage because we only knew physical items. And so we know how important it is to actually like own something that you care about. But kind of a point Mastermind made earlier was just that like being able to archive or being able to put you on the cover or put Jada poem in there or do something like that, I feel like was really important because it's like, well, I always think like, what happened to Instagram shut down tomorrow? And it's like, well, damn, all my shit is gone. So now we got Search Party and it feels a little different.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna answer the question then. I don't want to make a blog. You know, I love blogs. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want to make another one. I don't want to aggregate content. I don't want to make song posts. That's a lot of work. This is also a lot of work, but y'all don't see the work, you know. And the work is less timely than posting something online. I mean, also it gets lost. Like we're always inundated with stuff online. You know, how much scrolling can you do on Instagram? So, and I wanted you to hold in your hands. I want you to, the paper is important. The colors are important. You know, all of that's important to the experience of reading the magazine.
And it's always going to be brand new for the person who has seen it for the first time. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like with art at times that has been the new spoiler alert with like Instagram and things where like these timestamps come into play and either you no longer push that art anymore as art. You're like, oh, that's old. I can't do that. I got to do something new. And it's like, again, just how important archival things is. But yeah. How you doing?
Thanks, Mom.
Shout out to moms, man.
We have like 12 minutes, so I don't know. Do y'all want us to talk more?
We can do that.
Should we stop talking?
If anything else, like I said, beyond if you buy an issue, a search party or not, it's somebody here that you know that really gives a damn about whatever it is they're doing. Just find your way to support them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not gonna happen overnight. And if you're an artist, accept that support. Like, this is something I always try to tell artists. Like, I'm an artist, he's an artist, she's an artist. We not the fans. We're artists. There are a million people that are not in this building that you could make a fan. So don't always just look to, even though it's St. Louis, don't just look for the people right in front of you and say, why they not reposting my song? Ooh. It's a million other people. So go find your fans in St. Louis. I promise you they are there. So just keep encouraging that.
I think, again, it goes to my curiosity and if I feel compelled by what somebody's doing. And, it's definitely a mixture of my taste and Ryan's taste. I think in the first issue, he's definitely the guide because I was not that tapped in. But over the last few years, I've definitely become more hip to a lot more. So
it just was people I just felt like deserve some love. Like, they just been working hard. And like you said, you might create your own platform. So it's like you get all these followers and you get all this attention, but then nobody's saying, hey, good job. You know what I'm saying? Or like just giving you that extra thing for you to share. That's something too. Like, the artist needs something to share as well to kind of keep them going. So it was kind of that, just being like, damn, they've been working real hard. They deserve some love. I didn't have to. I didn't have to. To be honest, if that starts to become a thing or something like that, I'm just like, it's not your time. We only can do so many issues. We can only do so much. And unless I've missed something, nobody we've put in a search party made $1 million yet. So it's not like this is not, you know what I'm saying, the end all be all. This is not ESPN yet or anything like that. So, don't overthink it is what I would tell them. Keep working. Yes. Yeah. Nobody from Wentzville.
Sorry, y'all.
I like Wentzville. I'm just
Shout out to
so
Wentzville.
far. I'm joking. Yeah. County and city. Some of the people may not have lived here. So, like, for instance, in the first issue, we had her official title is Dr. Ricky Bird. Ricky wrote an article about the Air Force One's important, but she lives in Chicago or somebody else. So, yeah. St. Louis inspired. There you go. I think Black Spade had a question.
Damn, you said all of that just to ask the same question? Hopefully this year, I mean, okay, what would be helpful, I think one of our biggest barriers is obviously making money to pay people. So buy a magazine. That is the one thing you could do. Also, if you want to give us money, I welcome that. But buy a magazine, they're at the front. They're at the front. Or you can go to the website, searchpartystl.com. But also you can buy them here and get, Vintage Vinyl gets a little commission. We get some money. So.
Art Museum.
Oh, yeah. And also.
A Contemporary Art Museum and Novel Neighbor in Webster Groves. So if you know anywhere else that might be interested in carrying them, let us know. But right now, Vintage Vinyl has been like a super great partner for us. Make some noise to Vintage Vinyl.
To still piggyback on that same thing as far as support, I think that's a really big. It's a big thing. Y'all see these folks. They are lifting, a really big, heavy lift inside of St. Louis. For them, at times, it might not feel as much as a lift because it's a passion of love, but in the same sentence, finding ways to be able to do exactly what you said, support the people doing it, especially if it does it for you. You know what I mean? Like, find ways to support, from let alone purchasing the magazine to going online and really sharing this stuff, not just to repost it, but like you can just go text it to your homie, be like, hey, yo, go check this out. Like, think more or person to person type of sharing is what we need to do anyway. Like, if this magazine excites you, like we already know that it will, go have a conversation with somebody about this magazine.
It's an investment. I think of it as that, an investment in your community. You know, and where would we be without community? I can't do any of this stuff without y'all. You know, so.
A testament to that.
And so many people in this crowd are in the second issue too, which is really cool. Thank you for coming.
I'll say this: the second issue is a music issue. It's all about music. So from the DJs, our cover features Kutta, who is like a jazz producer, singer. Kutta does everything. Kutta Vandross. We got Ray Ray AR. Raise your hands, Ray Ray AR. Those two young bit producers. We got Makita Kravitz, who's a DJ. We had Miley, who is a singer, and Nike Turbo, who is a Renaissance artist,
For sure.
to say the least. And then DJ PNB Jeff, he wrote the cover actually. So we even got a DJ to kind of write it, just to try to continue that. But I mean, we got a poem dedicated to Chingy's album Jada wrote. Hey. We got Kenny is in there with the playlist. Black Spade, obviously. So it's a lot of people that you might just see around. And so that's why we're just trying to continue that. Right. I would say the first issue covers a little bit more broad spectrum of the art. The second issue is literally just dedicated to the kind of the music scene. That's a culture. That's a exclusive. I don't think we've ever said that out loud. That's what our plan is for the next one. But yeah.
Drop some flex bombs real
Yeah,
quick. Y'all heard it here in Vintage Vinyl.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, y'all. I appreciate y'all for coming out again. Make some noise for yourself. Make some noise for Vintage Vinyl. Make some noise for Mvstermind for being a great person and moderating this. And
Appreciate y'all.
yeah, y'all. I'll let y'all. Peace out.
Let's get it.